got yesterday, Shefty, to see Fernando Mendoza at his pro day. We know he's going to be the first pick in the draft. He threw a wide range of passes as well as threw on the run. It's the first time we've seen him really in any way since he won the national championship with the Hoosiers. We know he didn't do much at the combine, but he looked like him. Yep. What were you hearing yesterday from people? I know you were at the owners' meetings and all that sort of thing, but all the people who matter were here to watch this. What did you hear from people?
Green, he cemented his status as the #1 pick yesterday.
Yeah.
He's going to visit with the Raiders in Las Vegas next week. They already have him learning their offense, getting up to speed on what he'll be doing in 2026 under Clint Kubiak. There's no drama as to what we're going to be seeing 3 weeks from tonight in Pittsburgh, and he looked the part yesterday. He threw the ball long effectively. He had short throws. He commanded the huddle. He had the type of character that you want out of the #1 overall pick, which he is expected to be 3 weeks from tonight.
Yeah, I think that's for certain. And there's every reason in the world that it makes sense. Jordan, you've got some tape for us here. What do you see in Fernando Mendoza as we get set to make him the first pick in the draft to try and revitalize a Raider team that has really struggled for a long time?
Yeah, before we get to the tape, I just want to say it is really easy to go grab one or two throws and say, oh, this guy's doing this or that. It's harder to find something consistently that pops up for Fernando that you go, this is something I think he needs to fix. So that's the reason he's going to be the #1 overall pick. But there are two things I think that consistently come up in film with Fernando. The first is pocket presence. He jumps when he throws. So he loses a lot of his lower body torque, and he also doesn't get that right shoulder through the throw. When you're throwing on the run, because you lose your lower body, you have to be better with your upper body. He kind of always finishes with his chest and his shoulders square, which means he's losing velocity. That was an interception. There's a couple other throws that pop up, especially to the right. So he's just got to be a little, tighten up those mechanics. Don't jump when you throw. You actually want to double tap on your right foot so you can torque your hips through the throw. I know we're getting in the weeds here. Yeah. There are a few things, and just a few, that pop up with Fernando. He's so good. That's the reason he's going to be the #1 overall pick.
And I want to make it completely clear what the conversation that we are having, because there seems to have been a lot of controversy around anyone suggesting anything else. He's going to be the first pick. We all agree he's going to be and should be the first pick. We asked Jordan to put together a look at what are the things he needs to work on at the next level to make himself the best player he can be. That's the reason that we're looking at those things. And
with the Raiders,
they are things. I mean, they're all these guys come in and they need to get better, and so these are the things we're suggesting he needs to work on. Tim, do you think he is set up for success? We've watched the Raiders have a pretty interesting offseason. They've added a lot of pieces, spent a bunch of money, particularly right in front of him at the center position. Do you feel like he's set up to have success quickly on the next level?
I do believe he's set up for success, but just not quickly. I mean, first off, just look at the division that he's going to get drafted into. I mean, it's probably the toughest gauntlet of quarterbacks in any division that somebody would have to come in and face. When you're talking about, Bo Nick's been a playoff, quarterback each and every year. There's Patrick Mahomes, and then you obviously, are dealing with the Chargers. So I just think when you look at that and you say immediate success, when you're talking about 6 games a year against those types of quarterbacks, and then the fact that they've been a really bad team, like they haven't been good. There's a reason, even internally, that they felt like, look, let's trade Max Crosby, let's get 2 first-round draft picks and try to rebuild this around a young quarterback. So I don't think it's immediate success. I do think there'll be growing pains like there, usually is for quarterbacks. But I do think that with everything that is happening there in terms of head coach, quarterback, investing in a center, and what the future could look like, I do think he should be an excellent pro.
I think their entire offseason has been devoted and dedicated around Fernando Mendoza.
Yeah.
Going out and paying Tyler Linderbaum to make him the highest paid center in NFL history, highest paid interior offensive line. That's for Fernando Mendoza. Hiring Clint Kubiak, who's going to implement a running game that's effective, that's going to take pressure off the quarterback. That's designed for Fernando Mendoza. And I would imagine when in the draft here, once again, will be designed around protecting Fernando Mendoza.
Hopefully.
Yeah, they need receivers, and I saw Kubiak say that they would, in a perfect world, they'd like to have a veteran quarterback presence that could start instead of him at the very beginning, but they're not sure if they'll have that in the building. They traded away Geno Smith, so we'll see if he winds up being the starter week 1 or not. And then there's, you just lost against that stare. Incredible form, to which you replied, hope there is video on everybody to see how my ACL was spared barely. I'm dying to have you explain that tweet.
Well, Greeny, I was walking up a single stair in the Biltmore Hotel on Tuesday afternoon. I missed the step, wiped out, somersaulted about 15 feet. I knew exactly where it happened at the time. So I called the hotel to see if I could obtain the video footage of that, not to burn it, but to have a laugh.
Yeah.
I spoke to Hunter, the manager of security at the Biltmore. He texted me back, Mr. Schefter, I can confirm the fall. Unfortunately, after speaking with management, we are unable to share the footage due to Hilton's corporate policy. I apologize I couldn't make something work. Hope you enjoyed your stay with us. Well, I didn't stay there, but I happened to be there. And now that I can't get the footage, I'm very disappointed. So that's the way it goes. Hunter, release the footage,
Yeah,
please.
seriously. America wants to see it. America needs to see Shefty falling up a stair.
It would leave get up. I promise you, it's that bad and that embarrassing.
Shefty, you made a career on back channeling for information that shouldn't be released. You got to be able to get this one out.
There's
got
no
to be
sources
somebody there
inside the Hilton Biltmore in Phoenix.
I got to work on this.
I don't care about anything. I want this story broken live on the air here. We need video of Shefty. No video or it didn't happen. My favorite part of that is we can confirm the fall.
Well, so can my right hip and the bruise on it.
I'm not sure that's what you were looking for. Okay, here we go. It is never too early to look ahead to Arch's March. I want you to hear what Steve Sarkisian, the coach of Texas, had to say about his quarterback last year and how he dealt with all the criticism and expectations. He said, quote, 99% of kids would have melted last year if they had to endure what he endured, and all Arch did was get stronger. So, Jordan, I have a question for you. If Arch Manning was in this draft, I think he made 1,000% the right decision not to come out and stay in school, particularly in this day and age where players can make so much money in college. But even if they didn't, his uncle did it once upon a time. He made the right decision. But if he were in this draft class right now, where would he go?
Yeah, I think it'd be QB3. Look, I think Arch has a ton of upside, and I've broken down from week 0 to the end of the season. I don't know if anybody made more strides, both mechanically with his footwork, improving his accuracy. I mean, it was night and day from that Ohio State game to the Texas A&M game at the end of the year. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the country in the last month of the year. Here's the thing, though. I'm with you. He absolutely needed to come back to school because what pops up on tape is there's still a little bit of inconsistency to how the ball comes out of his hands, how it spins, the accuracy at times, the velocity. And does he carry the velocity consistently? That all has to do with footwork. So as much as he made some huge strides, and there's a ton of upside, both next year at Texas with Cam Coleman, he's going to have a monster year. But in the NFL, I think he still has some consistency issues to improve with accuracy, velocity, and he'll get there. He's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country this year, but I think he would be 3 behind Mendoza and Simpson.
First and foremost, I defer to your expertise when it comes to evaluating the quarterbacks more than anything else. And I cannot prove what I'm about to say because it didn't happen, and so we will never know. But it is my opinion, Tim, that if Arch Manning were in this draft class, he would be the first pick. I believe he would go number 1 based on the projection, on the talent that he obviously has, and any number of other factors, including the way I think teams view the 2 quarterbacks who are going in this class. It's not meant to disrespect them, but I believe that whether Arch Manning was better than they were yesterday, what I think they would project him to be 3 years from now, I think Arch would be the first pick in this draft. What do you think of that?
I think there would potentially be people that share that sentiment. I do think it would be hard, based on what we've seen from Arch, to think that he's a better prospect than Mendoza at this point. So, I don't think what Jordan is saying, I don't think that, probably a better way to say it, I do think people that would share a similar sentiment to what Jordan said in terms of QB3, but I also think there would be people that would see him in some ways similar to Simpson, but with what exactly you just said, Greeny, way more upside, because I think he's way more physically talented than Simpson. He's got a similar sample size in terms of number of starts, things of that nature. And so if you saw them in some ways similar in terms of a bit of an uneven year this past college football season, but you are projecting, that's part of the draft, I think people would have him higher than Simpson, and he would go, prior to Simpson. I don't think that you would find a lot of people that have him in front of Mendoza. Truthfully, like if you just, rip the name off the back of the jersey type thing, Mendoza kind of looks like a Manning. Just being real, played with Eli in New York. He's robotic. In a good way, almost mechanical. Like and in terms of when you hear Cignetti talk about him and like the relentless preparation, like that is kind of how he portrays and presents, and why I think people love Mendoza so much.
I agree with that completely, because Manning doesn't play like a Manning. Arch doesn't play like a Manning, but that's because he can do things that neither Peyton or Eli could do. And Shefty, we were having an interesting conversation off the air. The specter of not just Arch Manning, but next year's quarterback class in general, and how it hangs over this year's draft and will probably hang over all of next season.
First of all, just like Tim to take a shot at his former teammate Eli Manning, calling him robotic.
Sure.
I mean, that's unbelievable that he does that, throwing another guy under the bus. Yeah, no, the draft, the quarterbacks next year, they do hang over this draft. And I think there are a lot of teams that are looking at the quarterbacks in this draft and thinking about the draft next year at the same time. Now, look, the Raiders are going to take Mendoza, and somebody's going to take Ty Simpson pretty high in this draft, but there are a lot of people wondering about the quarterbacks next year, looking at the quarterbacks in the draft next year already, and it does hang over this process.
How high? You just said Ty Simpson pretty high in this draft. Every mock I'm seeing right now has him in the second round.
Well, this is a long conversation, but in a nutshell, he has first-round talent. It's hard to pinpoint the team. I can go through and say, I don't think this team's taking him, or this team, or this team, or this team, but he's going to be a high pick.
Okay, we're going to set aside some, Eric, our producer,